Are you ready for the weekend yet? We have events, news, and a guest for you to enjoy this Lake Life weekend. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lake Life Weekend Podcast. I'm Dirk, I'm your host, and it is Memorial Day weekend, the traditional cabin opener, but it feels like April weather, end of May. It's a little sad, but we just heard in our last episode about the Becker County Museum. So if you are coming to Lake Country and you don't know what to do on a rainy day, you can check out the museum. I think that's a really good place to start. I hope actually that the weather will clear up and it may even look like a good Saturday. We still have not put the boat in yet, unfortunately, so we will try that this weekend, Harry and I. Today we have a program with Sally Hausken, a beautiful story where she made childhood memories to be her life's mission, and she founded the Greater Sucker Creek Preserve just east of Big Detroit. If you leave town to Perham on Highway 10, there's a sign, and Oscar and I, we go there regularly, and it's a beautiful place, nice trails. I've been there with Harry too. There's actually 2 parts. You will learn all about that from our guest today, Sally, so stay tuned for that. If you want to know what else is happening this weekend in Lakes Country, please go to lakelifeweekend.com with our daily updated event schedule, some news, and all that. Feel free to email us any question that you may have to hello@lakelifeweekend.com. And please also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates in the area and so on. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I don't want to keep this any longer. You have a great weekend ahead and enjoy our interview with Sally. Thank you. Welcome to our interview part. I'm here with Sally Hausken. Hi, Sally.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. And Sally is the founder of Sucker Creek Preserve.
Greater Sucker Creek.
Very good. Sorry.
Greater Sucker Creek.
Greater Sucker Creek.
Yep, there's 2 parcels, the preserve and Upstream.
Right. Before we go into detail of the properties and what we can find, what species and flowers and wildlife, I would like to know a little bit more about who is Sally, where is she from, how did you come to the Detroit Lakes area, and then we merge into how you came up with the idea to found this preserve and what it is all about. So how did you come to Detroit Lakes?
Actually, as an infant,
Okay.
I was from Wknd, North Dakota, and when I was first born, my great aunt has a cottage, or had a cottage, on Big Detroit Lake, and we were the poor relation. So once in a while, that is most Saturdays in the summertime, we would drive from Wahpeton to Detroit Lake and stay at my great aunt's cottage.
Nice.
And that was a wonderful experience that stood me well through the years. I've done it all my life. When the waves were great on the lake, I couldn't play in the water, and I was saddened, and so my folks took me over across the road and up a hill and into woods, which is now Sucker Creek.
Okay.
It was a very narrow trout fisherman's path to get in there, and I would walk through as a little child, and one time, and we had to go across this bog, and one time I lost a shoe in the bog because in the bog, it always went to walk in. And so I had to go back and put on this muddy shoe. But then you walked a ways farther through the poison ivy and stuff, and you got to the stream. And that was my magic place from little childhood on.
So you literally have been here all your life, and your childhood memories made you create the preserve.
That's right.
Before we fast forward to that, what did you do between childhood and foundation of the preserve?
Boy, lots of stuff. I went to college in Chicago area.
Wow.
And then I went to San Francisco for a year and a half, and I'm a swimmer, so I swam on a water ballet team, amateur, while I was in San Francisco. Then I came back and I went with the U.S. Army and went to Germany and was stationed in Bavaria for 2.5 years.
Yeah, we just
and then I came back and I saw that the GIs didn't necessarily adjust well to being in the Army. So when I got back, I went to the University of Colorado and ended up taking graduate studies for counseling.
Okay.
So for 30 years, I was a counselor at different places. The last place was in a suburb of the Twin Cities.
Okay. So you had a long journey until you arrived back.
Yeah, until I retired. That's right. That's right.
So how long have you been back or settled in Detroit Lakes?
Long time. A long time. I started the creek thing. The issue came up. Well, I got the land in 2001.
Okay.
But I had to go through a lot of fundraising and applying for a grant and so forth. And that started in 1999.
Okay.
So it was 2 years before we got the land. And that was the land just for the preserve, not for Upstream.
Okay. So 20 years ago, you initiated the process.
Well, yes. As I was driving my car out of my driveway one day, a neighbor stopped me, and he said, "You see that hill up there?" And he was talking about across the road and into what is now the preserve. And he said, "This is going to be upscale homes, and they're going to get a beautiful view of Detroit Lake, and it's going to be like the Minnetonka of the North." And I quietly said, "I've often thought that, but haven't wanted to believe it." So then I started to look at who owned the land, because then I was scared.
Okay.
Because this would be, if that got to be private homes, that would take away my magic place. And I wasn't going to have it taken away so easy. So I found out who owned it, and I called them and I said, "Hey, I want to buy your land." And they said, "How much of it do you want?" They had it all plotted off, but they hadn't listed it. And I said, "I want all of it." And there was this silence, and we decided to get back together, and we hung up. And then I panicked, wondering where I was going to get the money to buy that. And unbeknown to me, they panicked because they'd never had anybody say they wanted all of it. So that's how it got started.
Interesting. Did you become good friends?
Yeah, this was a party of 3 gentlemen, very professional, and I was not in a position to be professionally as acute as they were in something like this.
Okay.
So I had to enlist the help, and I found out about environmental agencies in a great big hurry because I was looking for money.
Yeah.
And I finally, for the first one, I finally found out there was a grant through the DNR, but the money came from the Minnesota legislature, and it was for acquiring land. So I filled out a grant application for $92,000 from them, and then I had to raise another $92,000. That was a little hard.
Okay.
Nobody knew me, see, because I had been working in the Twin Cities, so nobody was familiar with the name. Why should they give money to that, see? But I finally went to somebody who was comfortable with money and who was supportive of what I wanted to do. And they started the ball rolling with with a sizable chunk of money.
So you were able to raise 92,000, and then you.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. Well, a professor at grad school, and I think this is a point well worth taking, said to me, and he was referring to something else, I was in grad school at the time, but he said, bleed the data dry. And when you apply for a grant, you jolly well better have your ducks in a row with what you're putting in there, because if you're too general, you're not going to get it. So I took that to heart, and where I got stuck on questions in the grant application, I'd go over to the DNR and I'd say, hey, I need some help on filling in this. Or I'd go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife and say, hey, I need some help at filling in this. When I submitted the grant, that thing was really, I had bled the data dry. And we got the grant.
Huh. Yeah, fascinating. So that was 2001?
Yes. But I went through, I had to, like I said, I contacted many environmental agencies, and one that took over the negotiating, because I didn't know how to do it, was the Trust for Public Land. And they excluded me from their conferences with the owners. I don't care. I want to get I want to get the land. So they properly did it, and the rest is history. We got it.
Huh. So you purchased all the parcels?
No, just the preserve.
The preserve?
Yeah, that was 61.24 acres. And then right away, we got one lot on the south side of the creek. Now, all of this that I'm talking about was on the north side of the creek. But then we got one lot on the south side of the creek, and that was an incidental. I just kind of worked that. And then it was some years later that the opportunity came to buy Upstream. The stream is there in the preserve, but there's no source of water. That meant we couldn't get along indefinitely, without, if somebody else bought the source of water, Coca-Cola was a possibility, and I heard it rumored, and I wouldn't have, that would have been the end. But I had an opportunity some years later to buy the mineral springs that were across the road. By this time, in 2008, the people of Minnesota were asked to vote on a 3/8 of a cent increase in their sales tax. And 1/4 of that was for conservation, and 1/8 was for arts and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And now 2008 was a time of recession. Things were not good. Darned if it didn't pass. So that meant a lot more money was available for conservation. And it was at that time that I heard from the party that owned it, asking if I was interested. And so here again, I filled in a what do you call that? For a grant,
Mm-hmm.
grant application for $495,000. And this time, and we got it with ease. But you see, I had gotten 2 other grants prior to that.
Oh, wow.
Because once we acquired that preserve land, then we needed to apply for another grant in order to restore it.
I see.
And the second grant was for $60,000. And that's where, if you walk through Greater Sucker Creek, you'll see beautiful signs explaining all kinds of stuff, ecoregions and glacial history, and birds and water processes, and native plant communities, and fish families, and insect families.
Let's talk a little bit more detail, because I know the trails. So we have a paved, like first of all, we have somewhat of a parking area, like a roundabout kind of, and 2 of them. And then we can take some steps down on a paved walk, and that actually leads to an auditorium area.
Amphitheater.
I'm sorry about that, amphitheater. And then through the woods, there's trail.
Yeah, they're
trails.
called unimproved paths.
Yeah.
And in fact, tomorrow morning, I'm tied up doing. I'm not doing the mulching, but I'm there supervising it.
Oh, they're putting mulch on the unimproved. On
Yeah. We do that
see.
every year. There's the Detroit Lakes High School has what they call a day of caring, and they send students out. Students have they don't go to school. Well, they do go to school, but then they fan out to different homes to do cleanup, lawn cleanup, and we have 10 or 15 young men who will come, run wheelbarrows, shovel mulch, and add mulch to the unimproved paths. It more clearly displays paths. So you walk in there and, oh, this is a path because there's nice mulch on it.
Right.
Otherwise, people might be ambling thither and yon, and we need to protect the vegetation in there, not to mention the animals.
So let's touch on what is all hidden in the preserve, from flower to animals, plants. What is there all to find?
Initially, there were yellow lady slippers. I was told there were Minnesota state flower, but I've never seen them, and to tell you the truth, I don't look for them because I don't want to know. If they're there, I don't want to know. But we had yellow lady slippers, but there are thieves, and they seem to have disappeared. I'm sorry about that. But I want to say that I raised an awful lot of money, in total $950,000, when I quit counting, and I'm sure it's over $1 million now. But I think the people who gave, and there are hundreds of them listed on the boards there, I think the people who gave have a feeling of ownership, and I request, because I clean up the trash at the preserve, I ask that people take their trash with them so I don't have to clean it up. And I think many of the people who gave are stewards enough that they do that. We have the 2 circular park lots, one at the preserve and one at Upstream, farther on down. As for fauna, I would say we have fox, we have coyotes, we have raccoons, we have skunk. Well, of course, we have deer. We have wild turkeys show up once in a while. What else? Fisher, did I say? Of course, there are the squirrels are pretty much prey for bald eagles or other raptors who come there as well. We have a prairie on each parcel, and the prairie we have seeded to native prairie plants, grasses and forbs. Forbs are wildflowers. Grasses, big blue stem and little blue stem. This is what the pioneers saw when they were initially crossing the Central Plains. There was little blue stem grass and there was big blue stem. And big blue stem grows about 5-6 feet tall. So it's very tall, but we've got a lot of it in the prairie, in the preserve. Now, at Upstream, we're trying to improve the soil into that in the prairie part of Upstream, and to that end, we have planted soybeans. A farmer has planted soybeans. Soybeans fix nitrogen in the soil. So over about a 3-year period, the nitrogen will have built up, and then we hope to seed it to native plants again.
So the prairie and I guess the shrub, the trees, they're all shelter for all sorts of animals.
Oh, sure.
And I have not seen a fox there yet, but it's 62 acres plus Upstream, so there's a lot of wildlife.
Yeah. The original preserve was 61.24. Then I got that little lot 3 on the south side of the creek, so that brought it to 64.24. Then the land across the street, it's the Mineral Springs is 52.7. Yeah, the total is 117 acres of natural woods and prairie.
Okay. You mentioned the Mineral Springs a couple times now, and you also mentioned Coca-Cola. I actually heard a story. So this is mineral water that actually could be bottled and could be drinkable?
Well,
no?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not in a position to respond to that.
No, it's interesting because in Germany we have a lot of mineral water. Like there's Gerolsteiner or there's towns, even if Evian or like San Pellegrino, all those bottled water that we drink from France or Italy, these are townships that actually have a mineral spring.
Yes.
And it's a healthy water, yeah. So I was always kind of missing, especially in a state like Minnesota where we are blessed with water, why we don't have mineral water from somewhere that we drink. It's just like a European heritage that I carry, and not the filtered fountain tap water. We don't drink that at all in Germany or Europe for some reason.
I get my water from the market.
Okay.
They've got water there, and I get it there. But that land is our land now, and mineral rights are included.
Okay, so it is really of quality. It's quality water, let's put it this way.
It is a mini-watershed.
Okay.
It's not any bigger than 2 miles long. The mineral springs at Upstream, and then the little romantic little Sucker Creek going, and then it at its mouth is at not far on Big Detroit Lake.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. And the water, we have had this event, which Steve Fody, chemistry teacher at the high school, has managed to put together with me. I call it a city-school partnership because the city, i.e. me, have an account, a single account that is to be used for education only. The donor insists on it being used for education. And so we do that, and Steve has come up with kids ultimately going in the creek to test the water 2 times a year. He has a semester chemistry class. So in the fall, he does it 1 time with 110 kids, and in the spring, he's got a new batch of kids, so we do it again. The problem that the students have to solve is, should there be a housing development at Sucker Creek, or should this be a natural woods and prairie? We don't necessarily tell the kids that it's a done deal. So the kids don't really know. Some of them might think that it could turn into a housing development. In any event, they have to go through different things. They hear a forum that is a pretend group of city council people, and they hear the pros and cons of which would be better to have. Then they do the in the creek testing, and they're taught by professional scientists. Professional scientists are given the day to come and speak to these kids in the creek. So we get entomologists that's bugs, entomologists, and we Donna Dustin and Mariah Roofer are 2, and we have several scientists who can do the water quality, the turbidity tube, and second disk stuff.
That is like a real case study, yeah? Like they create a...
Yes. Absolutely. At the end of this, it's a 3-week assignment. He's got a number of things for the kids that they have to learn how to post data. And first they have to learn it in the classroom, and then he takes them out to outdoors to do it too, so that they have to learn how to post the data as well as collect it.
Wow. So it is a very educational place, yeah?
Yeah. And then at the very end, he has the kids vote on which would they prefer. Now, we just did this a week ago tomorrow. So the vote has been taken, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I can't get... in the past, we've been doing this since 2017 now, twice a year. And in the past, the pros for keeping in natural woods are about 87%.
Thank goodness. Yeah, good. So we have all kinds of signage for the visitor to read on this. It's an ecosystem, correct? I mean,
yes.
It's a whole.
Yes.
So I can go there with my children and actually take something home. I learn something. I get educated on what the forest is about.
Absolutely.
So I was always curious about the amphitheater. Is there a program? Is there ever like an event or?
Well, it can be, yeah.
Has there been something or like?
We had just to give you the prime example. In 2006, it didn't open until 2006 because we had a lot of work to do. There was a lot of work to do with heavy equipment and so forth. But in 2006 it opened, and we hired a speaker of children, and he presented environmental stories. And we had all the kids, I think it was third grade. We had all the kids in Detroit Lake schools who were in third grade come. And it took us a few days to do that. I think it was 3 days.
Wow.
So they came, a few classrooms at a time.
And has there ever been like a concert or like some sort of a theater play or anything?
A couple of churches have had their services there.
Oh, interesting.
Few people have wanted to get married there. The problem is, on the preserve, the grant was so tight that we cannot have, there can be nothing else there. If I wanted a picnic table or something, the answer is no.
Okay.
We can't have, I call them satellites for bathrooms. We can't have that in the preserve.
Okay.
It's tight. It's got to be, it's a natural area for animals and flora.
Ah, okay, I see.
And woods and flora.
Okay. And how long are the trails? Like, is it 3 miles or 4 miles? Because that's quite a
yeah. I really don't know.
Okay.
But I do have a person who does know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I walk it with Oscar here, and it's the loop takes me at least 15 minutes.
Now, are you talking about using the handicapped accessible path?
I go down to the amphitheater and then I go back through the woods, but I haven't gone that big loop yet. I mean, there's more trails to be explored that I
How
have
about
found.
Upstream? Did you go across the road to Upstream?
I have been there a year ago, and there's a water bridge or something, right? Or like a floating.
We have 3 marshwalks, 2 in the Upstream, and the one in the preserve.
Oh, there's a marshwalk in there too?
There's one in the preserve.
Okay.
And there are 2 in the Upstream.
Okay. I have not found all of them yet.
Okay. One of the ones in Upstream, we purposely made a bump out, what we call a bump out, on the metal marshwalk, so that handicapped people could wheelchair in there, and from that bump out, trout fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So there's
and
trout in
it's a designated trout stream. The DNR does stock it, and now we stock it from Upstream because we own Upstream.
Okay.
Before we didn't. We stocked it from the stream itself before we got Upstream.
Right.
But Upstream has, of course, the very freshest water
Right.
coming out of the ground.
Huh. So, sorry. With this project that is not only preserving nature and fauna and flora, it's also preserving childhood memories, maybe a little bit. Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
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 So.
Absolutely.
So what?
People say to me, What made you work so hard on this? I said, there was no work involved. There wasn't any work involved. I wanted to make sure that my wonderful place stayed there.
Huh.
It wasn't work.
Yeah. So it's pure joy, yeah? It's just fulfilling you.
That's
with joy.
right. That's right. And the win-win I get are people that come and like it. And I have yet to meet anybody who doesn't like it. One party complained that I didn't have the handicapped accessible paths swept clean of grasses. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it, and I'll tell you why. When we first opened that, there were some kids who liked to skateboard in there. And one group was skateboarding, and a girl got ahead of them skateboarding, and she fell. And she was hurt badly. I believe she even had to get taken to Fargo. So I am anxious for that to be a safe walk. And people can walk around the grasses, they're not hiding the path. It's firm. So that's where I'm at with that.
Right. So it's protecting actually of future accidents possibly. So misuse of the environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very nice heritage that you leave behind, I guess, and
legacy.
Legacy, yeah, right. I'm sorry, yeah.
One thing I would say about the preserve prairie. Very originally, when before the white man came, that was all one parcel of woodland.
Mm-hmm.
So we call that prairie in the preserve a scar on the landscape. And to that end, we are allowing the forest to reclaim it.
Oh.
So down the road, you'll notice there's an occasional tree showing up.
Yeah.
And I know what they are, and I know about it. I'm quite aware, and that's what we want to have happen. So ultimately, that will be more woodland.
Woodland again.
Right. But now not so with Upstream. Upstream, that area is going to be prairie. We're going to plant it to native prairie grasses and forbs.
Okay, yeah. So do you think, obviously you just answered my question, you're not done yet because the scar is going to become woodland again, but is there
I'm never done. I'm never done. There's always something. So tomorrow we're having the day of caring. So I just worked with the city guys on getting a couple more wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Yeah. So it will still be growing in a way, not growing in size, but in maintaining, and the prairie is coming. Anything else that you have maybe planned for in a few years that you want to add? Is there anything else to come? Like a platform where an overlook, or like a bird watching station, or I don't know?
I would say we definitely want to keep construction out. And of course, solar wanted to come in there. Some solar wanted to come in on Upstream.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the grant is worded, it can't.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, any intensive construction around that site would threaten the quality of water.
Okay.
And right now, we have exceptional good quality water.
Mm-hmm.
For example, one of the things that the invertebrate scientists found was an invertebrate that frequents only the cleanest water. So Mariah Rufer sent that information down to the cities to report it, because that was exceptional, to find that one little invertebrate that wanted the cleanest water. See, if we get too much construction around there, that water will, I tremble for what might happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, of course. So it's a preserve. You protect, it's the only goal, yeah.
It's Greater Sucker Creek.
Greater Sucker Creek Preserve. Yeah. Yes. Wow. Is there anything else you wanted to point out or share? Anything else, like butterflies, bees? Like, do you know how many species? Like 113 different species, or like?
Oh no, I don't know any of that stuff. But I do want to put in a plug for the climate.
Uh-huh.
There is that's that's past arguing about. There is climate change. There is warming of the climate. There was a new UN report that just came out yesterday that predicted we'd lose 1 million species in a short period of time unless we take better care of the environment. Right. I am doing my best for that. I feel strongly about it. There are two things that if we lose, man cannot live on this planet. One is water. We've got to have good quality water on the planet. Mm-hmm. The other is what we call biodiversity. I wish people would quit planting maple trees. Biodiversity means having lots of different plants. There are lots of different trees. There's hackberry, and there's hickory, and there's lots of different kinds of oak trees. So many. There's pin cherry, there's Juneberry, there's, just on and on and on.
Ein Mischwald, yeah? Did you hear that? Mischwald.
Yeah.
I don't know, we have a term for that. It's a mixed forest.
Yes.
And Mischwald, a little bit of evergreen, a little bit of oak, a little bit of pine. I don't know what it all is. Kastanienbaum.
Ironwood. Now, that's a very common native tree here. Mm-hmm. It is under a canopy. It doesn't want to grow to a great big tree. Mm-hmm. To me, I don't understand why people don't plant that in their homes, at their homes, and they don't. And I don't get it. But anyhow, there's also Ohio buckeye, which has a pretty conical flower on it in the spring that the cedar waxwings love. They come and eat the petals. Mm-hmm. There's, there's nannyberry, there's downy arrowwood, there's, that's viburnums. Anytime you meet up with a viburnum plant, you know it's probably a pretty good plant. I have several different kinds of viburnum in my yard. Another thing is red twig dogwood. Why aren't there any red twig dogwoods in people's yard? They're very common. And in fact, the red twig dogwood is circumpolar. It grows all around the pole. Mm-hmm. It grows. I can go to Norway, it's there. If you'd go to Russia, it's there. A little quirk in that, but it's there. And it's here. Mm-hmm. And then that isn't the only. Pagoda dogwood is a lovely one. If you wanted something outside your kitchen window that you could look outside but people couldn't see in, pagoda dogwood is a very lovely plant. Gray dogwood. On it goes.
Okay, so I think we learned a lot, and also I feel people are not planting enough in their yards. It's always just a plain little field of grass, very sad, but I think we're opening another complete topic.
I hope so.
I hope they will change that. If people want to help you, you take donations, yeah? So people can contact. Absolutely. The account at the city is called the Sucker Creek Preserve account because we started it before I ever got Upstream. Okay. So one can contact the City of Detroit Lakes and make a deposit,
absolutely.
Donation?
Sucker Creek, just write the check to Sucker Creek Preserve account at the city. Uh-huh. And the city's on Roosevelt Avenue in Detroit Lakes.
Yeah, close by the Central Market area.
Right. Kitty corner.
Kitty corner from that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I did not know that. So it is that easy. So if people want to help and keep preserving.
And that'd be very nice. And also very nice is if you go there, please take your trash back out with you. Yeah. And stay on the paths. There are handicapped accessible paths. Those are asphalt crushed bit. And there are also the unimproved paths, the mulch paths. Stay on them, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much for coming, Sally, and thank you for sharing the story. And I hope,
Thank you for having me.
yes, I hope I invite everybody to go and enjoy your magical place, and then maybe leave a little donation at the city. Thank you very much, and happy spring.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's a busy one.
Yeah, this was already our newest episode of the Lake Life Weekend podcast. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Tune in again next week with another great guest and updates. Always check out our website, lakelifeweekend.com, and if you have some comments, please feel free to email us at hello@lakelifeweekend.com. And you have a wonderful weekend ahead.